else he's just going to say something. To get that.
Is this on?
Yeah, it's on.
Thank you. Okay, the meeting will come to order at 7:01 p.m. of the Lost Pines Groundwater Conservation District, Wednesday, August 17th, 2022, here at the Elgin Public Library, City Council Chambers in Elgin, Texas. I want to welcome everyone here this evening. Anyone have anyone they'd like to recognize or acknowledge this evening? Okay, if not, we'll go ahead and go to public comments. Limit 3 minutes per person. I have 3 people that signed up for item number 8, so we will wait and call you up right before we get to item 8. Michelle, you also checked 3A, another agenda item. Did you have a separate item, or is it just number 8?
I thought I just checked, just said number 8, but
It's confusing, that's why I asked. Okay, so everybody here wants to speak to item number 8. So I'll call you back up then. Okay, we have no other public comments. Item number 3, review and approval of the minutes from the July 20th, 2022 regular board meeting. Board members, you have had a chance to review the minutes. I was not at this meeting, so I'll rely on you to let me know if there's any corrections, additions, changes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Have a motion to approve the minutes as written from Melissa Cole.
Second.
And a second from Herb Cook. Any discussion or questions? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I abstain.
Oh, that's
Wasn't
right.
at the meeting.
I abstain as well because I was not here as well. Motion passes. Item number 4, consideration of the financial report through July 31st, 2022. Again, board members, you've had the opportunity to review this. Mr. Totten, do you have any comments on this financial statement?
Yes, Madam President, members of the board. There are a couple of things I'd like to draw attention to. Just in terms of expected revenue, we have collected the point just around 60% expected revenue today. For this time of year, that's pretty much right on track. As far as expenditures go, we do seem to be a little bit ahead of where we expect to be for FICA. That's one of those items that we have to guess on every year. We don't know exactly what the taxes are going to be, so we may need to keep an eye on that, possibly have a budget amendment for it coming forward. As far as regular and ongoing expenses go, government relations seems to be pulling a little bit ahead of where we expect to be for this time of year. But I believe we have that structured such that that should be more or less an exact dollar amount, so we may have just been a little bit prepaid on that one. And then we do have a obvious issue coming up with the director's compensation. At the rate we're going, that is currently at about 6% of what we budgeted remains for the year. So we are certainly going to need a budget amendment for that at the end of the year to correct that underfunding. But with those exceptions at this point in time, and with the exception of items mentioned in previous meetings, the website costs and a few others, we appear to be on track for the year. So we'll track the items that are running a little bit ahead, and if we do need budget amendments, we'll prepare those for the December board meeting.
Thank you. Elvis Fernandez, as Financial Services Chair, do you have any comments about the budget, the financial statement?
No, I do not.
Thank you. Agenda item number 5, consideration of and possible action on the resolution to adopt the district's amended 401A plan and trust proposed by ABG. Mr. Totten or Natasha Martin, do you have comments, please?
Madam President, members of the board, I apologize. This was the resolution that caused most consternation at the end of last month. ABG sent us a new plan restatement. I guess there were 10 business days left before the end of July, and they wanted everything to be updated, signed, and sent back to them by the end of July, which is why we initially called a special meeting just to deal with this resolution. We were able to sort that out. This is a restatement that occurs every 5 years to make sure that everything in the plan is concurs with IRS requirements. So we shouldn't have to do this again for another 5 years, but this will bring our retirement plan, all the wording and the phrasing and the niceties in line with IRS requirements for at least 6 months until they change regulations. But for now, we'll be in compliance with IRS. So that's what this resolution is. It's just adopting the plan restatement as put forward by ABG. It's, like I say, it's every 5-year thing that we'll have to go.
Ms. Martin, can you tell us if there's anything different that were changes that were made?
So there aren't any substantive changes. ABG provides a retirement plan for the district. So the plan features are actually the same as the prior plan. This incorporates required language by the IRS.
Okay, thank you. Board members, do you have any questions? Would anyone entertain a motion that we pass this resolution?
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution.
We have a motion to adopt the resolution. It's in your packet. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second from Tom Arsufi to act on a resolution to adopt the district's amended 401A plan and trust proposed by ABG. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item number 6, consideration of and possible action on the application Manville Water Supply Corporation for a new drilling and operating permit for well number 7 in Lee County for municipal use of the Simsboro Aquifer for a total combined withdrawal of 8,968 acre-feet of water per year aggregated with Manville's existing blue well field pursuant to District Rules 5.2B and 5.3C. The application does not seek to withdraw any amount of water in addition to the aggregated permitted annual withdrawal amount of the blue well field. Mr. Totten, would you like to address the board on this topic?
Yes, ma'am. Madam President, members of the board, what's before you today is very, it's actually identical to what the issue that we had from Aqua earlier this year, I believe back in May, where they were seeking to add a new well to an existing well field. This doesn't, in this case, Manville maintains 6 wells located near Blue in Lee County. They're seeking to add a 7th well to that well field with no change in the overall aggregate production. So the amount of acre feet per year will not change. This just adds a new well to the existing 6 wells. My understanding is the purpose of this is to add some backup redundancy in case there's a problem with one of the older wells, and also possibly to manage some instantaneous capacity if they're needing to refill the system quickly, or just keep up with demands during the summers. So, like I said, we went through this with Aqua several months ago. It's no increase amendment. There is a memo that's been supplied to you from Andy Donnelly, and there's also a memo that's been supplied to you from Natasha Martin reviewing the applications. At this point in time, the recommendation of staff would be that you consider granting the application as in the draft permit as put forward.
Does anyone from Manville here wish to speak on this issue?
Yeah, I'll speak.
Sure. Would you please come up and state your name? And
My name is Eric Prince. I'm the Director of Operations for Manville Water Supply. And, we've come to a point where our 6 wells, they're functioning for us, but there's times where we may have some issues where, there's some significant delays in getting those wells, back in service. So having this well 7 allows us that flexibility of not having to rush anything. And as y'all may know, parts, materials, getting things together is just a big lead time. So, y'all approving us for this well 7 would be a big help to our system as well as our members. So we'd appreciate y'all taking approval of our application.
Do you anticipate any other future wells at this location?
There has been some discussions of possible 2 other wells, but it would be applying basically towards, the same aggregate amount of acre feet. But right now, we're in need of at least 1 additional well at this time.
Okay. I live right almost across the road from there, just a little bit further south. I remember there were some old historic log cabins on that property. Are they still there?
They are still there.
Do y'all plan to do anything, or?
Well, we've had some that of interest, if we're possibly going to sell that acreage, or are we going to hold on to it? Or, if there's somebody of interest, maybe, that wants, some of the material.
Maybe a historical society or something. Now, I'm not a long-term resident, but some of the other neighbors are, and I know there's a high value on that, but I know that's not anything to do with the water.
Right.
But I am glad to hear that you have preserved it.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
For sure.
And so you don't foresee any coming to us anytime soon for more permits on that particular piece of property?
I really don't. I mean,
Okay.
there's been talks of possibly, 2 more added at some point, but it'd be on the same, property, but it would also be, within that 89, 68 acre feet a year.
Okay.
That y'all have already, approved.
All right, thank you. Other board members, questions?
Could I ask if you foresee any rate of withdrawal increase?
What we're hoping for is just the 900, which would be pretty much in line with some of the
No,
other
not the
wells.
total acre feet, but the withdrawal per minute.
Yeah, 900
Oh.
gallons per minute.
Oh,
Yeah.
but that's on that one well.
That's for.
But I'm talking
well
about the
site.
6332 gallons per minute aggregate.
No. You mean the 89, 68?
No, says aggregated well, the total maximum rate of withdrawal of 6,332 gallons per minute of the aggregated wells.
Of aggregate.
So that's the rate, not the total amount. Do you see any change in the rate of withdrawal?
No, I do not. No, I would say no.
Other board members have questions?
I have a few. Is my mic on? Can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Thank you. Mr. Prince, what counties are included in Mountainville's service area?
Williamson, Travis, Bastrop, and Lee.
Do you have any service? I'm just looking at the map on your website, and it's a little vague whether you had any service in Bastrop and or Lee counties. Do you actually serve it?
Yeah, we sure do. We actually, I believe it was last year, we took in some CCN area. The PUC approved us to take in customers that we were already serving in Lee County. We
Yeah.
just never held these CCN. So yes, we definitely plan to provide that water, some of that water to the Lee County, residents.
Mhm.
And we're looking to make some improvements out there in that area as far as elevated storage.
And as for Bastrop County, are you serving
A
any?
very small amount on County Road 301.
It looked like you had some
468.
kind of roads, sort of inroads there from Williamson County. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Do you have additional well fields, or does Mountainville have additional well fields beside the blue wells?
Yes, we do. We have 2 wells located on FM 619. They're actually part of this aggregate amount, which is called Bocas Well 7, and I believe 7-8. They're smaller wells. They don't produce as much as the ones that, gallons per minute wise, like these 6 and 7 that were, the 7 well that we're trying to get approval from. They're a lot smaller, probably 300 gallons a minute.
And does Mountainville have other sources of water in addition to your well fields?
Yes, we sure do. We actually have a contract with SLR, which was Alcoa. We have a contract with them. We've got 5 wells currently pumping.
Those are the old Alcoa wells, the dewatering wells?
Yes, sir.
And how much are you getting that source?
Right now, they're permitted for 500 gallons per minute each, but they're probably producing more like 400 gallons per minute. With that being said, we try to use that water first, just because it's under a contract. So we want to try to, go after the contracted water with the supplement of blue. But, we really hurt during the summer times when you're really needing, especially with this drought going on. And so we found ourselves at this point of, hey, we got to do something, or we're going to hurt next year.
So roughly how much total acre feet a year does Manville have available for use?
I would have to say this roughly, because last time I looked at it, I want to say we still had around 6,000 of use. We're not using half of our approved amount of acre foot per year.
And are you using all of this water within your service area, or are you passing it through to other water supply corporations, or say Taylor, or some of the cities around there?
No, we don't sell water to Taylor. We were providing water to the NOAC, but y'all may know we had taken NOAC CCN over, so it's now Manville. But I don't believe we sell, there's some districts, I believe in Pflugerville, but that's as far as it goes.
Okay, so just some water to Pflugerville?
Right.
Okay.
Some also districts.
The blue property, what is your acreage there? About what is your total acreage on that site?
I believe it's 200 plus, Tony, you know that exactly?
246.
246? Because we just purchased the 100, right? And that's where the well 7 would be located.
Yeah, okay.
And that's the only one we would have on that 100 acre property.
And do you have any other land leased or owned in the area or the surrounding area?
No, sir.
And I was looking at the cover letter from Mr. Graff, the May 2022 cover letter, and I guess my concern, I'm not sure how realistic it is or how relevant it is actually either. Item 3 on that memorandum, and let's see, I think item 4 also, you mentioned growth. The water produced will be used to address growth within Manville and adjacent water supply corporations. Can you kind of speak to your plans about what you intend to do with the additional capacity that you have?
We wouldn't plan to expand anything that we're currently serving the water to. We don't plan to serve anything outside of it. What would that be referring to?
Director Cook, if I might add, we had the same question about that language in item 3. And so we have them clarify they will not be serving any adjacent WSC CCNs.
So,
The draft permit would actually not permit that.
so in items 3 and 4, that language about adjacent water conservation corporations isn't in the permit itself?
It is not, and we
Okay.
have an email to add to the file to clarify the application.
Okay, good, thank you. See, I had a little bit more. No, I believe that's all the questions I have for you. I appreciate your
Sure,
information
absolutely.
and you're being straightforward about it.
I appreciate y'all's time. Thank y'all.
Go ahead, Mr. Sherrill.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Those 3 wells that you have in the SLR property, are they north of 112 or south of 112?
They are north of 112, and there's 5,
5 wells, okay.
yes, sir, 5 of them, H92, H94, 5, 7, and 8. is
Are
what
they
they're
in Lee
called.
County or?
They're Lee County, yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ma'am,
Yes, sir.
I have a question.
Sure.
Maybe a slew of them, and no offense to be taken. Are y'all planning for the future?
We will, yes, we are, yes, sir.
Are you putting numbers together on the number of people that might be coming into your water district? And to,
We have some that we have, you know, approved that have not been put in yet.
Mhm.
We have some applicants that are still coming that have not been approved by the board. We have been looking for other sources of water,
Mhm.
but that's kind of seeing what's out there that's already contracted.
Well, sooner or later, y'all gonna come to a place in time where y'all gonna have to have more water. And are y'all gonna try to find water and get it, whatever it takes to get it
Well, I
signed,
think,
sealed, and delivered?
I think, you know, there's going to be a time, I'm sure, you know, that like anyone would be looking for more water possibly, but we also are taking possible actions of letting people opt out in certain areas of, you know, around the cities, right? I mean, you know, we're a rural water supply corporation. And so it may make a lot more sense that as the cities grow out, you know, we let them go to the cities, and that's a way for us to not have to go secure more water. So we're kind of looking at those options of working with the surrounding cities
And
and possibly saying, hey, you're better off serving.
and places that might be putting in 150 acres for sale, and some land baron wants to buy it and put in a subdivision. And it's in your CCN.
Yeah, I mean, if it's in our CCN, you know, we're gonna tell them, hey, if we have the water, if we don't, we'll tell them, hey, look, you know, this is part of the provision, and we have to go out and seek new availability, you know, what options are out on the table, if that's coming back to y'all. But, you know, at this time, I don't think that's what we're doing.
Is it something that might be considered for future usages?
I mean, I can't really speak for, you know, our engineer at this time, or what the board is gonna, you know, because what I tell you, you know, that may change. You
Understand.
know, I don't make those calls, those decisions, but, you know, I do give my input.
I thank you, sir.
Yeah, you're welcome,
Appreciate it.
absolutely. Thank you. Does anyone else?
Other board members have questions? Thank you,
appreciate
Mr.
it.
Prince, I appreciate
Thank
it.
Cheryl, I have a few questions. I was thinking maybe Andy Donnelly would be here tonight there to do his August 10 tonight.
There's someone here in Mr. Donnelly's place from DB Stevens.
Paul Kirby from DB Stevens is here.
Do you want to ask
Oh,
him some
okay.
questions?
All right. Well, again, it's Andy's memo, and I'm not familiar. I don't know how familiar.
And I have not read it, so I don't know that I'll be able to be myself, I apologize.
You're going to be at a disadvantage then.
Yes, sir.
There was one mistake I noted in the memo. In the third line, the memo locates the Blue Well Field on County Road 309 in northeastern Lee County. I believe that should be northwestern Lee County instead.
Yes. It's just the way they,
Yeah, it would be right below the, right above the map, 2 lines above the map there. Anyway, that's just old school teacher stuff, and I can't let it go. I was concerned on page 2. See if I can find it. Andy concluded there's no need to conduct a drawdown analysis using the Central Queen City Sparta GAM I was wondering why the Queen City Spartagam would be mentioned when we're talking about the Simsboro. Jim, you may know about,
Yes,
just
sir.
a clarification.
I can speak to that. So the Queen City Sparta model, or Queen City Sparta GAM, is the name of the model that covers all the aquifers within the GMA. So that includes the Simsboro, the Hooper, I'm not sure why it's named after the two smallest aquifers. I'm not that much of a GAM historian, but the Queen City Sparta model covers all of the aquifers in our district.
Okay, thank you. On page 2, there was language, there will be no additional impact to existing groundwater and surface water resources or to existing permit holders. Are there other, the application and Andy's memo noted the two Simsboro wells that are within 5,000 feet, but not within 2,500 feet, I believe. But are there other domestic and agricultural wells near there, in some sense, that would be affected in other formations that would or have been affected by the blue wells?
As I recall, within the 5,000-foot radius, there were a couple of other wells, one Simsboro and one Simsboro, and then there were a couple of wells that were old oil and gas wells that turned up that weren't in our district database. We found them through the state database.
Yeah.
But that area, there's not a whole lot within that 5,000-foot radius. But again, 5,000, for this application, based on the production rate, 2,500
Yeah.
is the radius they need to be, that they need to be inside of.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I realize that's in our regulations. I'm just wondering if, in fact, other wells have been affected or could be affected that aren't either the Hugh Brown well or the Pilkington well that are Simsboro wells that you've noted.
There may be a couple others in the area. I'm actually going out to see a landowner next week that's to the southeast, I believe, of the blue well fields. Every couple of years, he has me come out and check the water level on his well. It's, we don't know the actual depth on it, so I'm not sure it's Simsboro, but I'll be out there. But other than that, like I say, there are some wells in the area, but it's not a very densely drilled area within the district.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can say, Mr. Pilkington he's no longer living there. Was my next door neighbor. I do know a couple of years ago, he did tell me his well had dropped and that he had to go deeper. But at the time, I had no idea what aquifer he was in. But you're right, most of the people that live out there are on aqua water, like myself.
Or a lot of the wells that are out, that are a lot shallower than
Right.
what we're talking about for Simsboro.
Right.
The Simsboro here is not tremendously deep. It is accessible for somebody that's willing to drill a deep well. It's not 1,200 feet. It's closer to the 800-foot mark. So there could be some domestic wells out there, but most people are still going to be completed in the upper formations, which would be the Calvert Bluff, because that's going to be the first stands and generally good water. So there's not a whole lot out there that really is likely to be impacted.
Yeah,
There are wells
also-
out there, I will say that.
Also, behind my property, David Sherrill has a well that I believe was dug as a test well by NDOT back when they were testing, and I believe it may be a Simsboro well as well.
The only NDOT test well that I'm aware of is south of, or in that area anyway, is south of Blue, down below the Alphabet Roads.
Yeah, well, this may be something else because it is an active well because he's using it to irrigate.
Yeah, I don't believe that's an NDOT well, I may be mistaken.
Any other questions?
I have one more
Go
for
ahead, Bill.
Jim, I guess. Is this permit assuming that only the Simsboro level could possibly be affected by a Manville well field as opposed to some of the other aquifer levels? I mean, is that an assumption that was made in this permit?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of your question, sir.
Are we assuming that only the Simsboro formation could be affected by the Manville wells here, or was consideration given to other formations that could experience drawdown as well?
Based on the modeling that we've seen, and again, the model wasn't run adding this particular, because there is no increase in production, we didn't do an additional model run. But, yeah, if we had, we still would have looked primarily at the impacts within the Simsboro. So, because again, it's a best guess on what's gonna happen on the upper and lower formations. So we focus on what the model says will happen in the formation that's being produced from.
Well, as with the city of Bastrop permits, it does concern me that no consideration is given to what happens if other wells are affected. And what happens to those folks?
Well, Phil, if I can chime in on this, my concern related to that issue is that when you look at any one single project, the other formations are hardly affected. It's only when you look at the aggregate and you start looking at all the projects, then that's when the other formations like the Calvert Bluff, the Hooper, then that's when you see significant, or you see a good amount of drawdown. So that's always been one of my concerns, is that whenever we look at it and give a permit for one project, it's always looking at the same formation, almost always the Simsboro. And when you look at it a single project at a time, the other formations are hardly impacted at all. It's only when you look at the aggregate that the other formations, you start seeing that impact. So that's an issue that I think it's a separate issue to be discussed when we grant permits on how do we try to get a handle on the other formations when any one single project, it's going to look fine. It's only in the aggregate is the issue, Phil. So, but I think it's a separate issue to be discussed.
I'll accept it as such, thanks. I'm through. Thank
Any
you.
other questions, comments from board members? All right, if not, are we ready to vote on this resolution? Okay, we are voting on an application by Manville Water Supply Corporation for a new drilling and operating permit for well number 7 in Lee County for municipal use in Simsboro Aquifer for a total combined withdrawal of 3,968 acre-feet of water per year aggregated with Manville's existing blue well field pursuant to District Rules 5.2B and 5.3C. The application does not seek to withdraw any amount of water in addition to the aggregated permitted annual withdrawal amount of the blue field. Do I have a motion?
So moved. I second.
Who made the motion?
Mr. Sinang.
Mr. Sinang made the motion and Elvis Hernandez seconded. So we have a motion and a second to approve this permit for Manville Water Supply Corporation. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, we have Mr. Sherrill votes no and the rest vote yes, so motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Agenda item number 7, discussion, consideration, and possible action on the modeled available groundwater mags provided by the Texas Water Development Board, including but not limited to consideration of a 10% variance to the mag for the Simsboro Aquifer. It's my understanding we were expecting the mags by August 1st, but Mr. Totten, we still have not received them, correct?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. So far, we have received the water budgets, which means the model run has been completed. But all they have released to us so far are the water budgets based on that run. I'm hoping that the mag will be following soon after, but like I said, it was supposed to be here at the start of the month, and here we are at the 18th, or 17th.
Okay. So basically, since we don't have the mags, we cannot vote on the 10% variance at this time. Any other board members have comments on this or any other thing to do? Otherwise, we will just skip this agenda item since we're not ready to act on it. Okay. Item number 8, discussion, consideration, possible action on matters related to the groundwater management area 12, including but not limited to a Vista Ridge impact study, comments on the joint planning process and the explanatory report, and consideration of a resolution on cost sharing for shared expenses at GMA 12. GMA 12 has asked for comments to their GMA process, the 5-year process, by September 1st. At that time, they will put together all the comments they received, and they will be meeting September 30th, if I remember correctly. So at this time, we bring some suggestions before the board, but board members and the public are also welcome to take their own comments directly to the GMA 12. It doesn't have to go through us. Mr. Totten did receive some, but before we start on those, we have public comments from 3 people on this topic. Okay, Michelle Ganges.
Who's on?
Is it on?
I'll speak up.
Is it on, Jim?
It's on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, board members. I haven't spoken to you in a while. I may have performance anxiety. I'm going to probably read my comments because I've collaborated with our executive director for Simsboro Aquifer Water Defense Fund on these comments. My name, for the record, is Michelle Gangus. I'm a Lee County landowner, speaking for myself, and tonight as the spokesperson for the Simsboro Aquifer Water Defense Fund. Andy Weir is on his way home from Georgia, so I tried to put together some comments, and Andy Weir is working on comments to GMA 12, as you suggested, by September 1. SAWDEF is supportive anytime this board is interested in enhancing the integrity of the regional planning effort with real-world studies that contribute data, lessons learned, and maybe even the occasional cautionary tale. A Vista Ridge impact study, what we might call a socio-economic impact study, is a perfect example of what we believe is needed, and I feel confident there are plenty of Lee County landowners who will also applaud any honest and fair review of Vista Ridge while they wait for the next shoe to drop on their wells. From our point of view at SAWDEF, impacts on what we call the donor communities of groundwater have always needed to be considered in the planning process. Now the GMA only worries about impacts on cities like San Antonio if they don't get our water, and some GMA members may not even want to consider anything but the groundwater models in setting desired future conditions. San Antonio did have feasible alternatives to Vista Ridge, but Lee County landowners who don't have ready access to alternative water supplies have a lot to worry about and deserve to be part of a cost-benefit analysis. Beyond their personal interests, they are also concerned about the future of our aquifers and Lee County's economic health, which should be a universal concern countywide and I would say district-wide. Please at least consider the following costs for inclusion in a comprehensive socioeconomic study of massive water projects like Vista Ridge that considers both the human toll as well as how many dollars Lee County's economy stands or might stand to lose. 1, well mitigation costs, which have already been considerable. 2, the potential loss of landowner income. 3, the loss of property value. Maybe well owners can't successfully sue the water pumpers, producers under the rule of capture, but none of that changes the fact that farm and ranch property values go down when water becomes unavailable physically or economically. That's a fact acknowledged by even Senator Perry. 4, disruption to farm and livestock routines. For example, forced sale of livestock, the need to buy and haul water, and damages suffered while landowners look for both emergency and long-term solutions. 5, the need for some sort of consumer confidence impact study, similar to how the government monitors the economy. Public loss of confidence in a county's water supply can result in less investment in the county, including residential, agricultural, and industrial, the latter being as water sensitive as agricultural endeavors. Drought just exacerbates the crises of confidence an uncertain water supply creates. The human impacts, number 5, the human impacts of water anxiety result in mental health issues, loss of public confidence in government, and financial worries caused by well costs that were never anticipated and are downright unaffordable for some. These are just some of the possible avenues of inquiry. SAWDEF's Andy Weir has been urging this kind of study at GMA 12 already for quite some time. He's our executive director. I hope its time has come in your eyes too. I know from a recent conversation with Judge Fisher that he's quite concerned about all of these issues, and I believe his commissioner share his concern. I appreciate the opportunity to address you. I wanted to give you a copy of these, but my printer decided to lie down today.
We'll be happy to
So
accept
I will
them
send them, I'll send
later.
my email to the district so they can have them.
Yeah, just email them to Mr. Totten, and he'll send copies to the board. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Bill Rhodes? Did you wish to give comment? Oh, that's okay.
My name is Bill Rhodes. I live in northern Lee County, and I'm here speaking for myself. A lot of what I was going to say was covered by the previous speaker. The new information I have is that Andy Weir came out and checked the depth of water in my well last month, and it was 243 feet while it's being pumped at 10 gallons a minute. And at the rate it's falling, which is about 4 feet a month, I'm going to be dry again in May through June. And I realize you guys have a tiger by the tail. There's more people than there is water, and I don't know what you're going to do about it. I appreciate what you're trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. Nancy McKee?
Good evening, Lost Pines GCD Board. For the record, my name is Nancy McKee, and I'm landowner as well as a landowner in Lee County. In addressing item 8 on the agenda tonight, I wish to express not only my gratitude, but my encouragement to the board in your attempt to add considerations when calculating criteria for the desired future conditions. The DFCs have long been a pet peeve with me because in the past, they've not reflected actual occurrences within the aquifers. This must change if we are to have realistic projections. Otherwise, we will only see another corrupted document, and unfortunately, it will be used for planning. In reading emails among President Smith, Mr. Hernandez, and Mr. Totten with recommendations that would further give credit to the DFCs, I am very much encouraged with the hope that the GMA 12 will listen and be willing to adopt these proposals. But these recommendations begin here. And so I respectfully ask that the board soberly take into consideration the proposals set before you, the resolution regarding cost sharing, and a Vista Ridge impact study. I know you know dozens of Lee County well owners that have been impacted by Vista Ridge. I mention it for the record here, but also to emphasize to you that the anxiety and stress that has overtaken us out of the blue and through no fault of our own has become an unpleasant fact of our lives. With respect, we want those who are planning our water future to demonstrate they care about all Texans, not just the recipients of our water and those who profit from selling it. We take this agenda item as evidence that you realize the significance of this important first step of doing an impact study that will inform others of your planning efforts for the next 5 years. I thank you for your time and allowing me to address the board.
Thank you, Nancy. Board members, you received in your packet comments that were submitted by Elvis Hernandez and myself. Mr. Phil Cook has some. Phil, would you like to cover yours since you didn't have opportunity being distributed in the board
Board
packet?
members, you all have a copy of these, and you can read them as well as I can. And I see no need in taking the time to do that.
Okay. Other board members, would you like to comment or make suggestions? Does the board wish to take some comments that we join together and approve and send from the board or not?
What did you say?
In other words, does this board, Lost Pines Board, want to vote to approve any of these suggested comments to submit to GMA 12 on before September 1st. These, okay.
The alternative is that we just do it individually, so they would just come from individuals as opposed from the groundwater district, they would just come from individuals.
Cheryl, what would you, and Elvis, what would y'all like to see on that? Would you like, I mean, I can go over my comments and read them into the oral record if we are going to consider the individual suggestions and recommendations.
There is one that I would cover first, and then Bill, I'll turn it over to you. Number one, we've talked about GMA cost sharing, that it should require an interlocal agreement. Let me explain what that is. Right now, the GMA has miscellaneous expenses, and those expenses are paid just by the different member districts, contributing to it. However, our attorney for procurement has suggested that we shouldn't be doing those without an interlocal agreement, that we can't just go spend money, and particularly with our procurement policies that we have in place.
Swap mics with you, sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure that one's working.
Okay. Can you hear me better?
Yes.
Okay. Turn it up with me too. Basically, we did not come tonight prepared with a resolution for our interlocal agreements. What we're proposing, or thinking about proposing, is passing a resolution that states that any expenditures by Lost Pines that will be contributed towards the GMA will require an interlocal agreement. And an interlocal agreement is quite simple. It's not very complicated at all, but it just makes a formal statement. Natasha, correct me, would there be an interlocal agreement for each expenditure? For example, let's just say a database. We're all going to share a database and everybody's going to chip in. That an interlocal, would you explain?
Sure, I can speak to it briefly. So the local government code has a chapter whereby governmental entities can agree to share costs if they're sharing costs that have a common purpose to both entities. So that's one, you have to have a common purpose. I don't know that we would need different agreements for different costs.
Okay.
There might just be one that governs GMA spending. As long as you have to have all the districts within the GMA have executed what the locals sign on to it.
Okay.
So the structure, I think, could be, kind of fluid, but, I think that we have to get all these districts in to sign on to one document.
It sounds like that needs more work. Okay. Another one that I felt pretty strongly about is aquifer-based voting, which is not necessarily what the state statutes say right now. For example, GMA 12, if you look at Fayette County, I'm going to pick on poor Fayette County, they are the size of the water district is 1/3 of the entire county. They are tiny. Medes, Texas is 3 counties, but they have very little water. But yet they get the same vote that we do at the GMA 12. And those 2 districts voted against our DFC that we wanted. So it's not an equitable situation. I believe that may cause a require a change by the legislature, but I still would like the word out there that I don't favor that each of the districts at the GMA 12 get an equal vote when they don't even have all the same aquifers or water supplies that we do. So that's where I'm coming from. Does anyone else have anything to say about that?
I agree with that.
Thank you, Melissa. Anyone else?
Just switching gears, I think we really need to get behind the impact study of the Vista Ridge project.
Absolutely. We have talked about the Vista Ridge impact study, and we've been waiting on Post Oak since March and April, and they've not gotten back to us with the data they promised. They've been dragging their foot. And so basically, we are about to the point where we're prepared to do one ourselves with the information we have. I'm not sure that but we need their data too, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
we were going to ask for a records request, I believe, from Post Oak Savannah, last I heard.
Open record.
Open records or something like that?
Request, yes.
Because, yeah, because of this.
Because they haven't been forthcoming.
It would be helpful to get that. The issue with that is that they wouldn't be required to put the data in the format that we need it in. So you don't have to manipulate your documents when you get a request, you just give what you have. And so I think if we worked with them, we'd be able to get the data in the format that would be most usable to us. But yeah, that is the crux there. And it's also my understanding that the Post Oak would like to see a GMA-wide study instead of just a Lost Pines, Post Oak, Vista Ridge study. So that those discussions are.
But if they're dragging their feet, why shouldn't we just go forward?
So it's a twofold. I mean, when this was initially proposed, Post Oak said that they felt it'd be more appropriate to do, a study across the GMA of production impacts, say for the Carrizo. Arguably trying to avoid being singled out. Now, the other side of that coin is they are sort of the biggest producer of the Carrizo, so regardless of how we do that study, it's still going to focus on Vista Ridge.
Right.
So there is the opportunity to go that route and try and work through the GMA process, with all the districts in the GMA to produce something like that. But the other side is we can get production data because they have that posted, and we can try and correlate that with the impacts that we've seen. So conceivably, we could do it, but we just don't know that we necessarily will have everything that we need based on what they've posted so far. But we can certainly evaluate trying to do it without, to work, excuse me, just with the data that we have available to us right now.
I mean, it's a start,
Yeah, I'm concerned about the length of time because we were expecting this information back in April and we still don't have it after Ms. Martin has tried repeatedly to get the information. We have a stakeholder group that starts meeting tomorrow in Northeast Lee County, the area impacted by Vista Ridge. And we had hoped to provide information to them and they will be making recommendations to us. But we haven't even started anything, and that's not our fault. But I'd sure like to get something going, even if we have to wait. Get going with what we can do, and then if we can get the information from them at some point, that's great. Add to it.
Ma'am,
Yes, sir.
please tell me what you said about Fayetteville and that other county. Tell me what's going on.
Okay. There are multiple groundwater districts at GMA 12. Fayette County Groundwater District consists of about 1/3 of Fayette County. That's how big it is, 1/3 of Fayette County. But yet, they get a full vote at the GMA. Compared to us, we have 2 counties. Compared to Post Oak has 2 counties and a sliver of Milam County. Brazos Valley has 2 counties. Brazos Valley also has the largest population and probably the largest pumping. Northeast Texas has 3 counties, but very little water. And all those people, regardless, of how many people they have or what aquifers they have, get the same vote at GMA 12. Did that make it clear? A little more understandable?
So what would be a good way to correct this?
Well, I think right now it's just raising the issue. I've talked to some people that they think that there's enough room within the GMA that we could change the voting procedures as long as everybody agreed to it. Other people think it would take an act of legislature. And I could not tell you what it'll take.
Can you check your mic? By the way, it sounded like it just went off.
I think the mic just went out. You might want to go back to the
I'm
other
just
one.
talking so loud.
You might want to use the other
It
one.
went off.
I'm just talking so loud, I'm wearing them out.
Is that better?
It's not working.
That's not working. I'll have to stand with the megaphone. Did you understand what I said? Okay. Is this working? No?
Try this one. Try this one.
There's a red light.
Musical. Since we're working on
Wow.
now you can hear me. This one's got a different color. The black ones don't work.
I want to thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. And again, I'm not sure that we can do anything about it, but I just would like, I want people to be aware of what we're dealing with. So, okay.
President Smith, just one point of clarification.
Yes, sir.
Fayette County does cover the entire county. It's just that only half of the county is in our GMA.
Okay.
So the district does cover the entire county.
Okay, well, thank you. The map only shows that one portion of the county on the map. Okay, Bill, would you like to speak to your concerns?
Oh, that was me. I couldn't hear you. Can y'all hear me? Okay. Well, in addition to the board members' comments, I know that Simsboro Operating Defense Fund has comments they would like to include in this, as does environmental stewardship, which we have, I think we all have copies of. I'm just wondering, we're under a deadline, we're not going to have another meeting before we can figure out what to do with these comments, and it would be well to have a board meeting where we perhaps approve some and not others of these, but we're not going to be able to do that without a special meeting, and I don't see us doing that. What to do with these comments?
I believe we may be having a special meeting on August 29th. Is that confirmed, Jim?
We have a venue, but I haven't confirmed that Greg found reason to have that meeting yet.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not sure where that stands.
Okay. Well, I'm pretty sure we're going to have on August 29th, a special meeting, in which case we could look at this more closely. There is no guarantee.
What time will that be?
Pardon?
What time will that be?
6 o'clock on Monday,
We all have
August.
fun,
Okay. Where are you going to be?
wherever my wife tells me.
Good man.
Okay.
President Smith, if I may make a suggestion, the other possibility
Yes, sir.
is we can take the comments that have been provided by the board members, try and synthesize that into a single document, and then bounce that through the management committee or the governance committee, whichever you feel is more appropriate. If they sign off on it, then that can become the final document that we can then take to the GMA.
That sounds good to me. Board members, do you agree?
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Okay, let's do it. Because we don't have time in this board meeting to hash out the details since we have so much.
Yeah.
We'll work with the board members that submitted comments, make sure we're properly capturing the ideas, put it all together, and then bounce it through whichever committee feels appropriate.
And then we have Mr. Cooks and these others to add as well.
Well, Mr. Cooks, about I specifically talked to Steve Fox, and he said these comments were for the district, not for the GMA. So I think he has different comments he wants to put into the GMA. So we'll just be looking at what was supplied by Director Cook, President Sherrill, and Director Hernandez.
Right, which may have some similar points.
There is some overlap, yes, sir.
Okay, very good.
But
Sounds
we
good.
still have time to edit our comments in addition to the ones that we've already submitted, board members.
It's going to come down to time, sir. So as fast as we can get put together, but we do have a hard deadline. So there's not going to be a whole lot of time for back and forth. But we'll work with each director to try and make sure we're capturing what's going down.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, but this ridge impact study, I think that's pretty important. Is there one thing I would like to kind of feedback right now from the board is, are you interested in, Natasha, this one, putting together a resolution for us to have shared expenses at the GMA 12? Now, of course, once we have a resolution, then we can take it to the GMA 12 and see if they're interested.
Yeah, I think it's needed.
Okay.
Yeah, I had just learned just recently that the explanatory report, that the bulk of the writing and the cost kind of is round robin. It kind of bounces between the different GCDs. So 1 year, like Post Oak Savannah may take the bulk of the cost from their hydrologist, and their hydrologist writes most of the report. My understanding was that last year, Andy Donnelly and Lost Pines took the lead, and that Andy wrote most of that explanatory report. So, yeah,
I'd also add that since he represents, or D.B. Stevens represents Fayette County, he told me that Fayette County also shared them. So it bounce to, I
Yeah,
think he's
so-
projecting Brazos Valley.
Yes, I didn't know that kind of bounces around the cost of that, and so because of that, I really do think that we need some sort of agreement at a minimum to kind of document that as to where we are, you know, who's already paid, who's yet to be paid, and kind of establish the order. So I do think that we do need something in writing at a minimum to address that.
Okay, Ms. Martin, would you bring something for our September meeting?
Sure. I'll
Just
just
a
bring
minute.
kind of a form contract and then the resolution. on top of it.
Thank you.
If I
Okay.
may, I just have one comment that I'd like to make on this topic.
Sure.
It's just that there seems to be just more a fundamental disagreement at the GMA 12. I think Michelle Gagnes mentioned this, where there's, you know, some groundwater districts just want to use the GAM model, and then others, and you know, ourselves, Lost Pines, and as Mr. Cook suggested, to take all the 9 factors into account. And so I find that there's that fundamental disagreement that kind of consumes everything. And because of that, it slows down the process and muddies the process. So my recommendation was actually that the GMA 12 hire a professional arbitrator, like a professional negotiator, to sit down with all the 5 GCDs and really elaborate and note what are the issues, like what are the problems and what are the solutions. And because we can do all the impact studies we want, but if we get outvoted, because at the GMA 12, everything goes with a super majority vote. So out of the 5 groundwater districts, we're always going to get outvoted. It requires a 4-to-1 vote, a super majority vote to get anything done at the GMA 12. So as long as you have 2 GCDs that only want to use the GAM model and nothing else, we're stuck. We can do all the economic impact studies we want. We're going to get outvoted at the GMA 12. So I felt that we needed to get some fundamental issues kind of on the table and negotiated between the GCDs if there's room to negotiate. And I felt that having a neutral third-party person come in and lead that effort was much better than having Post Oak Savannah, for example, lead that effort. To have someone coming in from the outside that's neutral, that might be able to be able to help negotiate these critical items that are in disagreement. So my issue is really quite fundamental to the way, you know, we want the different GCDs, the way their philosophy as to how they want to do the DFCs, and that we need to be in agreement. Otherwise, we're just going to get outvoted.
So basically, you're saying that, is this off again?
Yeah.
Basically, you're,
The black one seems to have gone off.
Did a green light come on?
there. Basically, if you think about it, you're correct, because all these different meetings and months of discussions ongoing, all are meaningless if nobody's going to consider anything except the GAM or the no pumping. The no pumping is all the 2 districts, or at least 1 district wants to consider. And that's their right, absolutely, but if they're going to carry the weight, why even have all these GMA meetings? Why even go? If we're going to be outvoted.
That was my main comment and feedback on the GMA 12. I just thought that maybe a neutral arbitrator could come in and possibly come up with some negotiated agreement on.
And Alice, I've also remembered that you said that that is our number 2 expense of all of our expenses. Number 1 is legal counsel, number 2 is GMA expenses. Is that correct?
Yeah, in particular last year, because we were in the lead of writing that explanatory report.
Okay.
And I was looking at last year's I didn't realize that it round robin, but I was looking at last year's.
Okay.
And last year's expense, it was the GMA 12 support of our hydrologist at the G, was our number 2 expense for the district.
So, Mr. Todd, I assume other years, that would not be your number 2 expense.
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
I mean,
Don't know.
all we can do is budget and, but I would expect, especially at the start of the cycle, I expect our hydrology expenses to be lower. So, but as, I know that Brazos Valley is in the process of turning over they're in the middle of an RFQ for hydrogeology services as well. And I'm not sure where Giddings, Texas is at, so, how things would shake out in the next 3 to 4 years with them having new teams, that may or may not impact how the drafting rotates. So it is possible we could find ourselves back carrying more of that. But we'd address that through the interlocal agreement you all suggested.
Right.
Assuming we get sign off from the other districts.
So Elvis, that's a good idea, but how would you implement getting an arbitrator to handle the GMA 12?
How would I?
What's the process that you can act on and get this to happen?
I'm not sure I quite understand the question, but,
Well, no, how do you get an arbitrator to do this?
I mean, there are professional arbitrators out there.
With the GMA 12?
Yeah, there would have to be agreement amongst that, there is an issue, right? You would have to get agreement amongst the 5 GCDs that, yeah, there is a problem here, and we, let's fix it, yeah. If they don't acknowledge that there's an issue, but the Lost Pines and Post Oak, I know have been very vocal, saying, hey, there's an issue. I think also Fayette County, or there's been at least 2 GCDs that have said, hey, this ain't working for us. And they've expressed issues.
So the question is, how do you get this on the table where those guys, the other GMAs can, or the groundwater conservation districts can say yes or no?
Oh, okay.
Well, that's included as part of Director Hernandez's comments. It will be incorporated into the district's comments to the GMA. So it would be brought up as we're going through those written comments. So
I think
the September 30th meeting, we can highlight that comment from Director Hernandez as one of the comments that Lost Pines has put forward.
And then Mr. Thompson would have to champion it.
The one thing we do have to look at is how that's going to be done in the format of an open meeting. Typically, arbitrations and mediations are not done publicly. So how are we going to put 5 GMs that are the head of the represent the GMA in a room to negotiate and still maintain compliance with the open?
Do they have executive sessions?
Not to my knowledge.
Well, even if it's just part of what we put out there, at least we're making it known
Yes,
that's an
we can
issue
certainly-
for us.
So the first step is raising that issue
Right.
at the next GMA meeting, which will be part of the comments supplied by the district.
Right.
So, Jim, can't you do a backdoor kind of negotiations with the other general managers?
In open session, no, sir, I cannot do that.
No, I'm not in open session.
You can't outside of the meeting. So the GMA is subject to the Open Meetings Act.
Yeah, right.
I mean, they have been trying, Post Oak Savannah and the general manager has been putting on the GMA 12 agenda items to discuss this, to say, hey, there's these other 9 factors, and he's given, history of the DFCs and why we need the 9 factors. They brought in Dr. Mace to talk about sustainability. So they're bringing folks in to try to convince the GCDs, hey, let's kind of change this up and not just use the GAM, but they don't discuss it directly. They don't just say, here's the problem, let's figure it out. And I think a neutral third party would cause less friction.
Can I just say a couple of things?
Yes, please.
So one thing I heard is that everything at the GMA requires a supermajority vote. I would just correct and say that adoption of the DFC.
Okay.
So, if you are trying to figure out, which GAM to apply or who's going to run the model, that kind of stuff, the statute doesn't say supermajority applies to like the working of the group. It's the adoption of the DOC.
Oh, that's good to know, thanks.
And then the statute does clearly say that the president delegates the representative. So I would be concerned about this neutral third party. That third party would have to be somebody delegated to participate in the joint planning process.
Yeah, I would expect, okay, that would make sense.
So maybe the GC presidents themselves would undertake that delegation, but I also don't think there'd be kind of confidential layer to it.
Right. Okay. Anyone else have any comments? Okay, Mr. Todd's going to put together a summary and send it out to, let's say, the management committee, governance committee. I'll have to decide what committee. Will probably go to the governance committee. We'll see.
Well, governance would already have 2 of the 3 directors who supplied comments.
Okay,
So,
that's what we'll do then.
I'll just have to work with Director Cook independently.
Sounds good. All right, so we will now leave agenda item number 8. Agenda item number 9, discuss, is my mic working now?
off.
Great, is it working?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, it just goes off and on. Agenda item number 8, discussion, consideration, and possible action on announcement of the hydrogeologist RFQ committee on the selected company for hydrogeology services and request for board permission to negotiate pricing. The RFQ committee met twice and has come up with the ranking. We are asking the board's permission to go forward with negotiations. If the negotiations are successful, then we would come back in September meeting and ask you to approve them as the firm for us to hire. If the negotiations are unsuccessful for any reason, we would then proceed to the next highest ranked firm. It's my understanding from our other procurement legal counsel, April Griffin, that all of this is confidential, that we may not state how many firms applied, who the finalists are, who the highest ranking one is. Ms. Martin, would you please speak to this?
Sure. So it's not necessarily law that the entire process is confidential, but we do recommend it as a best practice. As the district designated the RFQ committee to determine who that highest qualified provider is. So that's the group that would be still in the middle of the process, reviewing and negotiating this contract price. And so at this point, before the negotiations have even started, it would be detrimental to release, the number of bidders, the names, with negotiating that price. And so the government code does require that you try to negotiate the most fair and reasonable price, and we think that this way is your best way to do that, is to keep it confidential until the award. So the board would have all the information at the point at which you're asking to award the contract.
Board members, do you understand, do you have questions for Ms. Martin? You understand the reason for the confidentiality? So in essence, we're asking the board permission to go forward with negotiations with the highest rank firm. That's what we're asking you to do, without knowing who that firm is. So I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion for Mr. Phil Cook,
Second.
a second from Melissa Cole. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Agenda item number 10, discussion and possible action of board president committee appointments. Just to note that Ms. Kay Rogers has resigned from the infrastructure committee and has now moved to the outreach education committee. This was at her request. I'm also appointing a performance evaluation committee. As you know, this board by statute is charged with evaluating the general manager on an annual basis. So the committee appointment is myself, Kay Rogers, and Elvis Hernandez. And we will be meeting, to review and to be ready for the performance evaluation this fall. And that's all the only appointments I have today. Agenda item number 11, committee reports with possible board discussion. No action will be taken. Financial services.
There are no updates.
Okay. Governance committee. The governance committee met on August the 3rd. We discussed the GMA comments that we discussed here. We discussed the water levels compared to the DOC report. We talked about the joint invoices between Fayette County and Lost Pines and how costs are divided. We talked about publishing our corrective actions that we took to meet the requirements of the state audit. That will be published. All that has been taken care of. All corrections have been made. That report will be on the website soon. We talked about that there is still a need for wells in southern Bastrop County for monitoring. Is that still needed, Mr. Totten?
I'm sorry, ma'am?
Is there still a well needed in monitoring well needed in southern Bastrop County for monitoring?
We are still working on that. We've just started getting responses to the letters we sent out to well owners down in that part of the county. We're also working through the drillers in that area to get them to start planning ahead for possible impacts from the projects down in Caldwell County. So that's going to be an ongoing thing through the rest of the year.
Okay, thank you. We discussed the RFQ calendar, which is underway, and as I said, we hope we'll have a firm named and contract to sign at our September meeting. And we just discussed our hope that the mags would be here soon. And that was a summary of what we discussed at the governance committee.
Oh, there's one other item, President.
What's that?
The work that we're doing with for the resolution for the mitigation fund.
Oh, yes,
Just
go ahead,
update on
Elvis.
that. And the Lee County.
Yes, we did. And both of the resolutions for mitigation passed both county courts in addition to the resolution that we passed.
No, Bastrop is this Monday.
Oh, it's Monday.
Yeah, so Lee County passed on the 8th, I believe, on Monday the 8th. That's the resolution for a mitigation fund.
Yeah, Miss Nancy McGee presented that.
Nancy McGee was
Thank
leading
you.
with, and I believe you were there as well.
Yes.
And then on Monday, myself and Andrew Weir, we're going to be representing that resolution at the Bastrop County Commissioners Court on Monday the 22nd.
Right.
So
Thank you.
and hopefully then we'll have all three resolutions. We'll have one from Bastrop County Court, Lee County, and our resolution from Lost Pines. And then that all will be sent to Senator Colkhorst's office. And then they will lead the charge for new legislation to create a mitigation, to allow us to create a mitigation fund.
Right. Thank you. Infrastructure Committee?
The Infrastructure Committee hasn't met in a couple of months officially. Our real estate agent has been beating the bushes some for a possible site for our, if we were to purchase a site to move our offices and a meeting space, and I will be getting into that before the next meeting. I've just gotten back from New Mexico, and my head's not quite in the game yet.
I do have an update on the website. So we did meet last week with our website provider because there was a free redesign. It's really just the home page layout is being redesigned. And so I've been working with Mr. Totten, Mr. Arsufi attended one of the meetings, and we now have a new design layout. And on September 20th, we're meeting again to finalize that layout, the new website layout. So the next meeting is September 20th. Hopefully shortly thereafter, the new website will actually come online.
Great. Thank you, August. Education outreach?
We don't have a lot to report because we have an upcoming meeting. Jim Have you,
I haven't dealt with book the room yet.
Okay.
We've been meeting with City of Bellevue pretty frequently, so I'm trying to put a little gap in between my requests for the room.
gotcha.
So I'll reach out tomorrow.
All right. And then related to the website, from an education outreach perspective, we're going to get the email sign up moved to the front page, and that'll make it a lot easier to develop an email list and communicate with the community. And I'll just highlight a couple things that are going to be we're going to address at the next meeting. We're also going to look at a draft proposal that I put together for a calendar and photo contest. And also, we're going to discuss a draft I put together for a conservation award. The last thing was Javier also came out with a recent newsletter for the Outreach and Education Committee. That's all I got.
Thank you. Management Committee.
The Management Committee met on August 10th. We were going to look at the DFSC evaluation report, comparing it to the annual water level report, but we still didn't have it. So Jim said he believes none of the measured drawdowns are close to the DFC levels, but we'll be watching for what % of the DFCs is met so we maintain a healthy buffer for the larger aquifers. We discussed water well monitoring process. Every monitoring well in the district is measured twice a year. All wells within the Vista Ridge impact area are monitored every 4 to 8 weeks. 40 to 50% of Javier's time is spent monitoring. We currently have approximately 100 wells that can be monitored, though some of these are backup wells. And we mentioned still the need for monitoring wells in southern Bastrop County, but maybe you're getting that handled.
We're just starting to get calls for the response to the letters we sent.
Good.
So.
We address a recommendation from the state auditor to ensure that our management plan performs all actions of its goals. Included in those, we talked about the Colorado River alluvium was discussed as being a named minor aquifer. It was decided that a DFC for this aquifer would not be able to be managed, since we wouldn't, once Bastrop moves out, we won't have any permitted wells within the alluvium. So it would not necessarily be beneficial to set a DFC. However, we could monitor the water quality and the flow as part of Goal 4. We currently don't know the interaction between the aquifers and the alluvium, so this would be a beneficial study. Drought conditions are currently shared on our website via a link. General Manager reports the conditions to the board. We shall map hazardous sites as a protection of natural resources. Grants for conservation would be a goal for involvement of those within the district. Drought contingency and conservation plans could be included in our permits. Reporting of water leaks by big permit holders could be a rule change. Waste could be addressed by limiting the length of water transport outside of a pipe to 1/4 mile or less. Currently, it is 1 mile, or only within a pipe. We could discuss with county officials the waste involved with vanity ponds and let them address the issue within developments. Subsidence is currently listed as not an issue, but we discussed deleting the not. Management goals would have to be created if it is declared an issue. A survey of benchmarks every 3 to 5 years could be done to decide if it is an issue, and we're going to talk about this more in the spring. We looked at the Mid-East Texas and Gonzales County Groundwater Conservation District's production limit rules, and got into a discussion on historical usage and correlative rights in deciding production limits, and decided this needed to be discussed at the board level.
Thank you. Yes, and the correlative rights and historic rights, Ms. Martin has agreed to present to us at our September meeting on those 2 issues. Okay, thank you all. Number 12, agenda item number 12, General Manager's Report. Mr. Totten.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. The General Manager's Report for August 17, 2022. During the reporting period between July 1st and July 31st, 7 wells, 7 new drilling permits for existing wells were issued, and 1 existing well was registered on Form 300s. 4 water quality tests were performed, and 6 wells were gauged. That 6 reflects the numbers that I have. Javier's been out sick, so I didn't get his numbers to fill that in. But, so 6 is what I had in my book for the month. Approximately 90% of Lee County and 68% of Bastrop County are currently experiencing extreme drought conditions. The remainder of each county are experiencing severe drought conditions per drought.gov. To date, 2022 is the 6th driest year on record since record keeping began, which I believe is approximately 120 years. This first item that I have to report on, the House Natural Resource Interim Committee is conducting a public hearing on the August 24th. Among the charges that will be considered at that hearing is the charge related to evaluating groundwater management policies and regulatory frameworks. I believe President Smith intends to attend that hearing and provide comments and testimony on behalf of the district. And you asked me, was there anything else you wanted on that? You put this on my GM report, so is there anything else you wanted?
Greg Ellis has also written comments, but he's in Alaska right now, so he will submit that to the committee. There's also several landowners here, a couple of them here tonight that will have been invited to give testimony, in addition to myself and Gary Westbrook from Post Oak.
Second up is the HAP database update. So we have now been contacted by the staff at HAP. I hope that's the last rhyme for the night. They are doing the initial development work on the database. So they've begun asking some basic questions about structures and things like that. We have pulled together what we have digitally to submit to them when they're ready for it. So that's going to be all of our well data, our monitoring data, and our production data. Water quality is going to have to go in later because we do not currently have water quality data in a digital format. It's all it's in PDFs and it's in printouts, so we're going to have to find a way to digitize that and get that in. So that'll be a later addition to the database. But that process is now moving forward. I guess they started reaching out about a week ago and made first contact about getting that transfer set up. The next GMA meeting has been discussed already a couple times tonight, but it will be September 30th. It'll include discussions of the comments that are prepared and received at the GMA level. So we will be bringing forward the comments, developed by the board and from the public to have those discussions and hopefully kind of plot a path forward for us during the planning cycle. The Post Oak Expanded Groundwater Summit will be taking place tomorrow on the 18th at the Civic Center in Caldwell. All of you should have already received the agenda, and the district has posted a notice of possible quorum, so anyone that feels like showing up can, and we don't have to worry about violating open meetings with that. I'll probably be there for about half the day before I have to go back to the office for a bit, and then head to the stakeholder meeting at 4. I don't like having to make this one, but the district has initiated 2 enforcement actions against well owners in Bastrop County. We have a well owner in South Central Bastrop County who hired a driller out of the valley who basically drilled an illegal well. It's too close to the property line. It wasn't properly registered with the district or the state. We will be initiating a secondary action complaint against their license with TDLR to go along with this. We've tried to work with, well, it's been there for 2.5 years. It was fine until the neighbors got into a back and forth about whose septic tank and whose well, and so now they weren't able to resolve it between themselves, so we're having to file a notice of violation with regard to that. We'll work with the landowner to try and get that resolved, and like I say, we will put file a secondary complaint against the driller as well. Javier did some investigation with some of the districts in the valley, and apparently this driller has a reputation for not observing the state laws when it comes to drilling wells, so this won't be the first complaint filed against that driller. The secondary complaint that we will be sending out a notice of violation of later this week was the issue that was brought to the board last month by Alexander Fight. Her property is served by a well that was originally permitted as an exempt domestic, but it's currently serving 3 subdivided lots, which is a violation of district rules. So we'll be contacting that developer and getting them into the office to try and sort that out as well. With regard to pending permits, I am happy to say we currently have none. We'll enjoy that while we can. And for upcoming meetings, the GMA 12, September 30th, both Oaks Savannah offices in Milano, and also available online. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
How do you do an enforcement action?
So the first step is to send a notice of violation to the well owner that requires them to, if we provide them with a deadline to come in and basically, if we're wrong, they need to come in and explain to us why we're wrong or show us why we're wrong. And then if they don't begin corrective action, we can, at that point, the district has the ability to begin levying penalties against the landowner. Obviously, that's what we want to avoid. In the case of the well that was drilling properly, we were hoping to get a variance worked out between the neighbors, and then the wells would be registered with the district, and the situation settled. But they are now so far at loggerheads that she's not going to sell him a variance if he gave her,
Right. And then like, would you go like to JP court or county court or district court?
Yeah, so there's a couple of administrative steps that you do at the district, like Jim mentioned, send the notice of violation, and really try to work it out administratively to get them to do the corrective action. And then they have an opportunity, if they don't comply, they have an opportunity to do a show cause hearing before you guys, according to your rules. And then after that, if you still can't get compliance, you can file for penalties, but you do that through the district court.
Has this ever happened before?
not in my time, no, sir.
I just,
Generally, we've had problems like this, we've usually been able to sort them out before it reaches this stage. But these two people are just, they're not gonna work with each other, so.
yeah. Yeah.
And then the developer, this is, again, an issue that should have been resolved by having Aqua have to hook up the houses and the well being disconnected, but that hasn't happened, so.
Right, okay.
We're here.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Agenda item 13, discussion of Lost Pines Groundwater Conservation District legislation, related legislation, and/or activities occurring that affect or pertain to the district and groundwater. As I mentioned earlier, Mr. Greg Ellis is out of town, so we have no report this month. Agenda item number 14, consideration of conferences, meetings, and educational opportunities board members desire to attend. We have Post Oak Summit tomorrow. 1st of September, what is the conference?
The Tag Groundwater Summit, that's a 3-day summit, but again, I'll be attending the last day, the last session for my panel, that's probably about the only time I'm there.
Right.
But I believe some of the other board members are going
Yeah,
to that.
I know Melissa and Kay are going. Anyone else going? Okay.
I'll be there.
Ms. Martin, good. Very good. Let's see. Item number 50, announcements. I don't have any announcements. Anyone else? Board members?
No.
All right. Item 16, set date and location of next meeting. I mentioned earlier that we may be having a meeting August the 29th, pending the availability of the board members. We have a location. The next regular monthly meeting will be September 21st?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, September 21st at 7 o'clock at the Giddings Library. Number 17, consideration of future agenda items, calendar, and events. Does anyone have anything that they would like to have be included on next month's agenda? If not, we usually discuss this at our governance committee meeting the first Wednesday of the month. Number 18, we've had no reason to go into executive session regarding the Manville application, the LCRA matter. That would be the reason we would have our August 29th meeting. And Mr. Totten, did you say you're waiting, you have a meeting location, but you're waiting to see how many people can attend, or what?
No, ma'am, I believe we have all but one of the board members that are eligible to participate will be available.
Okay.
But the idea was that Greg was trying to round up a second opinion, and I don't know that he's accomplished that.
Well, he was going to try to do that before he left town, and I don't know whether he did either.
Yes,
But he won't be back.
He hasn't conveyed that to me, so if he hasn't done that, then I don't see we need to have the meeting. But that's a matter of we go on the record.
Yeah. Well, the last I talked to him, he was expecting we would have the meeting, but he doesn't get back until the 23rd, or something like that, and so that's just a few days, like 6 days before.
I've been in touch with Greg, so I can.
Would you
just
please?
touch base with him.
Okay.
I don't need a session tonight, I was just gonna let him know that we filed our answer today in the lawsuit. So, but we can give a more substantive discussion on the 29th, and that's when we meet.
Okay. Yes, the reason we wanted to meet on the 29th, otherwise there was an expiration date on September the 5th, whereby if we took no action, then everything stayed the same. Is that correct?
Yes, there's a second motion for rehearing, and
Right.
that expired by operation of law.
Operation of law.
Basically, it's overruled, the motion's overruled by operation of law. It's
Right.
26.
And so I think we better keep August 29th available, open for now. We'll find out. We'll be waiting to hear from you.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. All right, then we stand adjourned at 8:37 p.m. Thank you all for coming. Well, Greg, right before.